What this means is that we bring healing into team building, and we do this through imagine painting during our workplace team building, experiencing those healing activities. We also plan an event in Karura Forest. We call it Art in the Woods, where people come, we do painting, we play all sorts of games. Being in a forest, being in that serene environment also brings about healing. One of another program that we do is grief support. This is whereby if our workplace has lost a colleague or somebody, we go, we offer the support, through the talks, through offering them a space where they can express themselves, and also we conduct a ritual. And lastly, what we do is we offer mental health talks and through webinars and also one-on-one if requested. So today we are going to talk about the silent weight of grief. And together we are going to learn how to carry it with love and healing. So now, when we hear about grief, grief is human response to loss. There are different reasons we can define grief, or rather there are different words we can use whenever we're talking about grief. So grief is a natural human response to loss, how you respond to a loss. And loss can be a loved one, can be your health, can be your job, can be relationship, change. We end up grieving this. So it's the emotional pain we feel when something or someone we value is taken away. So when something we value is taken away, or rather when someone we value is taken away, that emotional pain is what we call grief. Before I continue, could somebody kindly confirm you can hear me? Maybe you can react or raise a hand just to confirm you can hear me. Okay, perfect, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so here are the truths when we talk about grief. So grief is universal. It can happen to any race, anywhere they are. And as much as it's universal, it's also unique because we all experience grief differently. And now, when we mention the word grief, we are talking about the emotional pain of losing something or losing someone. And we all experience that emotional pain differently. So, the other one is it's more than sadness, it's more than just being sad. There's more to this, and this can include anger, can include feelings of guilt, can include shock, can include feeling of numbness, or even relief. There are people who experience relief. Uh, it's a process and not an event. So grief unfolds over time and often comes in waves. And in an example, it's like grief is like an ocean. It's there. Sometimes it's calm, but then there comes a times where there are waves which can be even violent, can sweep you in and all that. And it's rooted in love. We grieve deeply because we have loved deeply. We can also, so how does grief feel like? So grief feels like a tight chest, a lump in the throat. You feel as if your stomach is empty and also your heart is empty. You try to work it away, you try to drink it away, you try to distract yourself, but it waits patiently. I was listening to Tyler Perry interview. He had lost his mother, and he said that for him, he tried to distract himself with work. So he would work and work and work, but grief, the pain, was waiting for him to finish working. The way maybe it's waiting for some of us here to finish working or to finish, whatever you are doing, to drink, finish drinking, finish distracting yourself for it to appear. And it tends to thrive in silence. So today's session, I'm going to do it a little bit differently because this is a very intimate session. So after my presentation, the first part is my presentation. And then the second part, we'll have a segment where people are going to share their life experiences with grief, what happened, how they are processing, how they are right now. There are some who have written as a text to me, which I'm going to read, and we also have someone who's going to talk to us for a few minutes. So hang on until we are done. So when we talk about grief, there are different stages of grief. So the first stage of grief is the denial. So denial is whereby anytime we receive news, whatever kind of news, the first thing that comes from our mouth is no, I can't believe it. That can't be true. Tell me you are lying. Those are the first things that comes, out of our mouth. We refuse, we deny, and especially when we get bad news, the first thing that comes to our mouth is no, that can't be true. And this isn't happening. This can't be happening. And the thing is, that denial, that first stage of grief, it helps you survive the first wave of pain because your mind cannot comprehend what is going on. So, in order, because it's a lot of emotion to comprehend and to process it immediately. So, what your mind does is you deny. And when you deny, you are also giving yourself some time to process what has changed, to process what is happening. So, denial is normally the first stage of grief. The second stage of grief, we call it anger. So by now you have processed what has happened, you have processed that particular loss. So what is going on in your head is why me, why is this happening? This is unfair. What did I do to deserve this? You become so angry towards people around you. You become angry towards the world. That's where we say the world is so unfair. You become angry towards God because, He took away the person that you loved. We even become so angry with the people that have left us because we are like, why did you leave us? Maybe why did you fight enough? Why did you go? So anger is the second stage of grief. And when I say second, it does not necessarily mean second, because with these stages, they it's not like guaranteed they will happen a stage at a time. Sometimes you might be angry, sometimes you might be in denial, sometimes you might experience something else. So they interchange, but they all happen to anybody who is grieving. So grief ends up becoming like a bodyguard for pain, and it protects the vulnerable heart. So don't suppress the anger. So when you are angry, express it safely, and especially when you are in an environment where you have people who can listen to you, support you, express that anger you are feeling. It's okay to be angry, even towards yourself. It's okay to be angry towards the person whom you have lost. Be angry even towards God. God understands that this is a process and it passes. The other stage is bargaining. Bargaining is more of it's like you're trying to, how do I put this? Maybe if I had done more, it's like you're trying to, how do I put this so nicely? But it contains a lot of what ifs, if only. Maybe if I had picked that call that this person called before they passed, maybe I would have said something to them and maybe they wouldn't have died. Maybe I would have taken them to the hospital. Maybe if I had done this, maybe if I had done this earlier, maybe what if I did this, if only I did this. Bargaining. And this stage is often filled with guilty because if somebody had tried to call you before maybe a week prior, and the conversation went on the way it went on, and then you hear after a few days that they are gone, you feel guilty. Maybe your parent called you when you were in a meeting and you dismissed them, so you end up feeling guilty. Maybe they wanted to tell me they were not okay. Maybe if I had picked that phone call, something would have changed. So this is the third stage, and we all experience it, especially when you're going through grief. And you see, with grief and with loss, you didn't have control over what was going on. You didn't have to say yes or to give permission to this person to leave. So when you end up bargaining, it's like you are trying to regain control. Because if I had done this, then this wouldn't have happened. if only this had gone this, then this wouldn't have gone that way. Bargaining. So that is the third stage. The other stage is depression. So this is now where you start feeling everything. You are no longer angry. You are just feeling that pain. It hurts so much, you can't go on. There are people who isolate themselves, they don't want to be around people. It's very painful. And just to give an example, I had a client, I'm not going to mention the name for the purpose of confidentiality, but they came to me, and the reason they came to me, they said that they don't know what's going on. They feel excess, they feel sadness, they feel they are sad, they are unable to eat, they are unable to sleep, they feel they are in a lot of pain, they don't want to be around people. And when we got to look at this, these were all symptoms of depression. And the good thing with counseling, we don't just rush to, we have to know, when did this start? When did you start feeling this way? What has happened during this time that you started feeling this way? Then now I got to discover that this particular person had lost her mom. And then after 3 weeks, she lost her grandfather who raised her. So it was quite painful for this person, and it was normal for her to experience all these symptoms, the pain, and these symptoms, they resemble the symptoms of depression. But this does not mean that this person is depressed, because even when we give you the test for depression and you score high, the first thing we go ahead to, we don't just give you medication. The first thing we go ahead to ask is, has something been happening, or has something happened for quite a period of this time? And then when you end up telling us that maybe you have lost somebody, then now we can know that this is stage 4 of depression. So allow yourself to feel this stage without shame. Feel it. You feel sad. You feel you don't want to get out of bed. You feel you are hurting. You feel as if there's something here trying to choke you. Feel all that. Allow yourself to feel. The other stage is acceptance. And acceptance does not mean that you are okay with the loss, that you are okay with what has happened. No, that is not what acceptance means. Acceptance means that you accept it has happened and you are learning to live with it. Not that not that you are okay with the loss. No, you are okay, it has happened and you are learning to live with it. It means acknowledging the new reality. And the new reality is that this person is no longer with you, or this particular item is no longer with you. And then you begin to adjust. You begin to grow around the pain. You begin to live again. So that is what acceptance means. So there are 5 stages of grief. So there's this guy called David Kessler. He has written a book called Finding Meaning in Grief, and he calls this like the 6th stage of grief. And he has lost several people in his life, including his child. So that is what motivated him to write this book. If you want, you can check it out. It would be, something good for you to help you process whatever you are going through. So David Kessler wrote this book and said that the 6th stage of grief should be finding meaning in grief. And he says, after you have accepted that this person is gone, you have accepted that, now what? After accepting, so you find meaning in the loss. Finding meaning doesn't mean erasing the pain. No, you can't erase that pain, but you give the pain a place to belong. So how does this look like? How do you give this pain a place to belong? You can do this through creating something in memory of the beloved one, in honoring their values by how you live, can be through helping others who are grieving, can be depending your spiritual, emotional, or human understanding. So meaning transforms grief into purpose. So you can transform your grief into purpose. And you are not expected to find meaning right away. It's okay if you are not there yet. So grief changes your life. Meaning is how you begin to write the next chapter of your life. So now, how does grief show in the body? How do you know? How does your body communicate to you that you are grieving? So your body can communicate to you are grieving through tiredness and fatigue. You find there's feeling of excessive tiredness. Your body feels heavy and drained. Your chest tightens or shortness of breath, often described as weight on the chest. You feel as if it's hard for you to breathe sometimes. There is aches and pain. That people experience headaches, that people experience muscle tension, stomach upset. Then this can be either acidity, diarrhea, loose stool. There are people who experience sleep disturbances, so you can either sleep too much or you are unable to sleep. Or we also have people who you can't sleep for a whole night. You wake up in the middle of the night, so you can't have like constant sleep. There's changes in appetite. So we have people who can stress eating too much, or other people who are unable to eat at all. They can't eat at all. And also, grief can also, show up in you physically through the weakened immunity. So this is whereby you find yourself you are getting ill. Small things get to you. You are near somebody who has a cold, you get a cold. So how grief show up at work? Because if you have lost somebody, there's that amount of time you are given to rest, to go home, bury them, maybe given a week to process, but then you come back to work, and a week is never enough, a month is never enough, and you have to go back to work because you need to pay the bills, you need to eat. So how does grief show up at work? It can show up at work through difficult concentrating. You find you are unable to concentrate in a task, you make mistakes over and over again. There is drop in productivity, so work feels harder, tasks they take longer. There's that emotional outburst, there's feeling of sadness, we are feeling of withdrawal, you become very irritable. Absenteeism, you start even missing work, calling in sick more often. There's loss of motivation, interpersonal strain, conflicts with colleague, withdrawal from work. Because you can imagine if you go back to work and then you are in the stage of anger. So you can imagine the people around you, your colleagues, you're going to collide with them so much, and that's what brings even conflicts at work. And then now there are those physical signs, the headaches, the stress related illnesses. So employees don't leave grief at the door, it travels with them into the workplace. So now, unattended grief. Sometimes we suppress what has happened because we feel we need to move on with our life. We need to work, we need, to move on with our life. And when we don't feel this grief, when we don't create time for it and process it, then it becomes unattended grief. And unattended grief is the one unattended grief is that has been suppressed, ignored, or minimized. Maybe you have ignored your grief through working, where you pour most of the time working, maybe through drinking, maybe through eating, trying to eat your emotion, trying to eat your stress. So it doesn't go away. It hides in your body, it hides in your mind, it hides in the smallest things that you do. It waits for you to finish distracting yourself for it to appear again. So it can show up later as anxiety or depression. And that's why there are cases of people who experience now anxiety disorder or depression as a result of. And when you we get to dig deeper, we found out is they lost somebody and they never got to process that. Explosive anger and emotional numbness. There's also chronic fatigue, addiction, or overworking. So, if you have been using work as a form of distracting yourself, then that means you are likely to be to be workaholic. If you've been using alcohol as a way of dealing with the grief, then you're likely to be alcoholic. If you've been eating a lot as a way of dealing with this grief, then you're likely to be addicted to food that can bring about overweight or obesity. So the longer it stays hidden, the heavier it becomes. So healing begins when grief is acknowledged and supported. Now, grief is unique. And when I say grief is unique, remember grief is that emotional pain we feel when we lose somebody or when we lose something. So no one's pain is bigger than yours. Somebody who has lost a child, you don't get to compare yourself with somebody who has lost a parent. Your grief is different. Your pain is your pain. Nobody has a bigger pain than anyone else. And that's what, because we feel like when we compare, then it feels like when we compare ourselves, when we compare our grief, at least, you know, at least I've lost this, I've not lost this one. At least I only lost my sister, I've not lost my parent. At least I lost my parent, I've not lost my child. No, your pain is your pain alone. Whatever you are feeling is your pain, and you don't compare, and nobody's pain is bigger than yours. You need to validate yourself because grief needs validation. So your pain is not bigger than anyone else. Your pain is your pain. So your grief is yours alone, but it still needs support. You don't need to chase the old normal, because one thing people feel when you are grieving is like you can't wait for this feeling to be done for you to go back to the old life. But the thing is, you don't go back to the old life. How can you go back to the old life when you have lost a child? The old life included when you had this particular person in your life. The old life included when you had your parent. So how can you go back to the old life? So you don't go back to the old life that you had. You create a new life. You create a new normal. People come to the session and they say, I want to be the normal me. I want to be the me that I was. But you can't be the you that you were. You create a new you. You get now to rediscover yourself because you are now new. So let people in. Grief is lonely. Tell someone you are not okay. Grief thrives in silence. Grief thrives when you are alone. You see, when you say, I don't want to be around people, I just want a minute, that's when grief thrives. So tell somebody you care about, somebody who you know they care for you, tell them you are not okay. Let people in. So what does grief need? So grief needs time. Healing does not follow a deadline. There's no way we can say I only need 1 month to be okay, I only need 1 year to be okay, I only need 10 years to be okay. No, healing doesn't follow a deadline. Be compassionate, gentle understanding instead of pressure to move on. So be compassionate with yourself. Safe space, a space to express emotion without judgment. So do you have people around you whom you can talk to, whom you can express yourself without them judging you? And if you don't have, then that maybe is the best time for you to go and seek counseling, to go and talk to a professional. Be patient. Grief shifts and changes. It comes in waves. So if you have been doing well for over a month and then you get triggered and then you have a breakdown, that does not mean that you are not moving. You are. Be patient. It's just a wave. It's a wave, you know. Connection. Supportive people who can listen and simply be present. Rituals and meaning. You can ways to honor the loss through memorials. You can write something. If you feel like you need to talk to this person, go to their graveyard, talk to them even when you are in the house. Whatever works. That's what grief needs. It doesn't need to be ignored. It needs to be acknowledged. And then self-care. Take care of yourself. Rest when you can. Drink water. Move. you know so how then do you go ahead and take care of yourself while you are grieving? So schedule grief, give it time and don't suppress it. And I can testify to how this works. I had a client who had lost a sister and she was in really much pain. The sister was not sick, it was abrupt, got a headache all of a sudden, went to the hospital. By the time they were getting to the hospital, the sister had passed. So, and she was in so much pain and she had to go back to work. So at work, she would find herself scrolling through her phone and then, have a breakdown, cry, and that interfered with her work. So her manager actually recommended her to seek help, to seek counseling, professional help. So I remember one of the things that I had encouraged her to do was to schedule her grief. It was okay for her to cry, but then sometimes when we ignore this, after a period of time, that's when we get these breakdowns. So I told her that you can schedule when you get home, cry, let everything out. You know, even when you are at work and you feel emotions are coming, don't fight it, because when you fight it, you are likely to break down on your way home in a matatu. So when you feel all this emotion, you feel like crying, you feel all this intensity of the emotion, how about you go to the washroom, cry, release all that, and then come back. Schedule your grief, give it time, don't ignore it. You might ignore it with work, but then schedule for some time for you to experience all this emotion. Sometimes when you are overwhelmed and all these feelings are, you are feeling them, sometimes you only need to breathe. Breathe through it. You can even tell yourself, breathe, breathe, you know, talk about it, talk to somebody, talk about the person that you have lost, journal down, write down, join a group. Shared grief reduces isolation. When you talk to somebody who has also experienced a loss, you don't feel alone. You feel like, and you can also feel that there's something about when you talk to somebody who can understand your pain. Therapy helps. This means talking to a professional, or also online support. You can go to social media, maybe look up people who are experiencing grief, how they are processing it, and so on. So, another way you can care for yourself. So another way you can care for yourself is through movement, because grief ends up hiding in our body, in our shoulders, it hides in our stomach, it hides in our neck, and that's why most of the time when you are stressed you feel like your neck is so heavy, your back, but movement helps. Movement is medicine. And I remember I talk more about exercise as a way of coping with stress and managing stress, when I talk about stress and stress management. Because when you move, you end up releasing some good hormones. For instance, movement can, when you exercise, you reduce a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is a stress chemical. So it releases and it comes out of your body through sweat and breathing. When you move, or rather exercise or run, what happens is that your body secretes a hormone called endorphin. Endorphin is a mood booster. And also serotonin, the happiness hormone. You feel better. When you move, you are able to sleep. Remember, maybe your grief was affecting your sleep. So when you move, you are able to sleep. When you move, you are able to eat, because whatever would have made you not to eat, which is cortisol, the stress chemical, has come out. Release. Sometimes the people who exercise, they cry, so you end up releasing all those emotions that you have been holding on. So helps you feel more connected to your body again. So move. You have been in the house for a whole week, just move. Be gentle. Start by being gentle with yourself. Move, go for a walk, come back. So you are not exercising to fix the grief. Please remember that. You are moving to allow space for it to breathe and to flow. Now, this is like one of the most important things. There are people who even texted me and requested me to talk about this in particular. So sometimes when we have people close to us who have lost somebody, we don't know what to tell them. And because we don't know what to tell them, we become insensitive with the things that we tell them as a way of comforting them. Myself included, I have found myself telling people certain things that are here. So we become insensitive with the things that we're telling them. And we don't mean, and we mean well, we really mean well, but what we say becomes insensitive. So we tell people, I know how you feel. No, you don't know. Not unless you are in their shoes, that's when you can know how you feel. So instead of saying this, you can say, I can't imagine how you're feeling, you know, or I can imagine how you're feeling instead of saying, I know. Because what if somebody turns back to you and asks you, oh, you know, have you lost a parent? Have you lost a child? How do you know? So let's avoid using terms like, I know how you feel. The other one is at least they lived a long life. As a way of comforting somebody, you find yourself telling them, at least they lived a long life. When we tell people this, it minimizes the loss. Longevity does not erase pain. Even if it's a parent or a grandmother who stayed for over 120 years, that does not mean that it's not painful for them because this person stayed for all this year, they lived a long life. No, it's still painful for them. We go ahead and we tell people, be strong. So when we tell them be strong, especially we tell men, be strong, you are a man, be strong. What we mean by this is that we are suggesting that they shouldn't cry. We are suggesting that they shouldn't show emotion, but grieving needs to be expressed either through crying or through showing this emotion. We go ahead, and we tell them, everything happens for a reason. But how do you tell somebody that losing a parent happened for a reason? We become insensitive with these things that we say. They may feel like we are justifying the loss, that it was okay for this person to be taken away from them, and we are not acknowledging their pain. So these are some of the insensitive things we say. We end up in saying, God needed another angel, this person was good. You mean well, yes, but we think that is comforting, but it's not. We make it sound harsh, we make people feel abandoned. You will get over it soon. Grief is not something you get over, it's something you live through. At least they are no longer suffering. This applies to maybe somebody who had they lost somebody who was sick. At least they are no longer suffering. And yes, it's true they are no longer suffering, but that does not lessen the pain that they are still gone. You lose a child or you have a miscarriage, the comments that people make, even the closest people close to us, don't worry, you are young, you'll have another child, or you'll have another spouse. And we mean well, but we invalidate the uniqueness of the person's loss. So instead of being insensitive with these remarks, because we didn't know, and I've had people asking, how do I support? Like, what do I tell them? What do I tell my friend who has lost somebody close to them? How do I help them? How do I support them? So this is what you can say to somebody who is grieving. You can say, this must be really difficult. You know, I'm so sorry for your loss. I can't imagine what you're going through, but I'm here for you. You don't have to go through this alone. I'm here whenever you need somebody to talk to. Call me. Validate. Validate their pain. Don't fix. You don't have even to say anything. Just your presence is enough. You don't have to give advice because, and I get the point of, we want to give advice, we want to make them feel better. So we look for words to make them feel better, but we end up being insensitive with the words that we say. So you don't have even to tell them anything. Or rather, this is what I tell people. What if you call that friend and you ask them, I know, I can't imagine what you're going through. I don't know how to support you. Please let me know, how would you like me to support you through this difficult time? How would you want me to be there for you? Trust you me, they will tell you what they need you to help with. So instead of you looking for words to try to make them feel better, just ask them how they would want you to support them. So then how do you go ahead and support a grieving friend, or do you support a colleague who has lost somebody? You can call or text, just check in, your presence matters. You can send a short message and be like, I just thought of you, my prayers and thoughts are with you. Trust me, that helps. That's better than, God. At least God has one more angel. It's much better than that. If you can go to their home, go do a chore. You can clean their house, you can cook for them. If they have kids, you can babysit. It eases their burden because remember, as much as they are grieving, they still have things that need to be tended to. They have kids that need to be taken care of. They need to cook for these kids. They need to clean the house. The house is in a mess. So, what you can do as a friend to support them, go to their house, help clean, help cook. If you can babysit the kids and give them a space to breathe, trust you me, they will remember that and they will acknowledge that. And with that, you would have actually helped. When you go to them, bring food. Food is love. When you eat, you feel better. It nourishes, it gives them strength. And then don't try to fix, just be there. You can even sit with them in silence. And I think that's what we fear. You fear that uncomfortable silence. You go through your head, what do I tell them to make them feel okay? But do you know what? It's okay. It's okay to be in silence. You find your colleague in the washroom crying, and you know you are from her burial 2 weeks ago. You don't have to tell her anything. Just put your hand on her shoulder and let her cry. Trust you me, that is more than enough. That is more than enough. So let them cry. Silent is sacred too. So let me go to the biblical perspective because it helps. So according to the Bible, Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1 to 4, it says that there is a time for everything, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance. So, seasons do not last forever. So, the season that you are in, if the reason why you joined this webinar, you are in pain, you are grieving, seasons do not last forever. Grief is a season, not the whole story of your life. So, this is not the whole story of your life. Your tears matters to God. You know, Joy will return. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. So grief is real, but so is joy, and it will return back to you. Peace beyond understanding, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guide your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus. So even in sorrow, God gives us peace that holds us together. So final thoughts. Grief never fully goes away, but we grow around it. You don't move on. You don't move on from a loss, but what you do is that you move forward. You can carry grief and still live a meaningful life. You can carry sorrow and still uh, be happy. You are not alone. Support exists. So get better at feeling and not at hiding. That's how you get through grief, by getting better at feeling and not at hiding. So we are going to go to our next, before questions, we are going to go to our next segment, which is, I'm going to read out some of the messages that people wrote about their experiences with grief. If you'd want maybe to share something, you can type it for the chat and I can read it out. Just a minute. Okay, so I have somebody. Hi, my name is Fauzia, and on grief, healing will come, no matter how long it will take. I did nothing, but the mercies of the Lord took over when I lost my mom years back. Somebody else has said, Hi, hey Winfred, I would like to share my story. I lost my dad on 5th June 2025. That is very recent. And since that day, things have never been the same. I remember receiving the news while I was working, and suddenly everything came to a standstill. Every day I would question God why all that is happening to me and my family. And I kept wishing we would have done things differently. maybe he would still be alive. Grief is something one is never ready for, and it never ends. One minute you are okay, the other your heart feels so heavy. And it actually takes something so simple to trigger that situation. Hugs to everyone dealing with grief, and may God continue giving you strength and light to carry on with life. The other one is, hi, my name is VM, and I lost both of my parents in 2020. One due to a heart attack, another because of COVID complication. My father passed on, and then a month later, my mom was gone. What I learned was grief changes who you are as a person, even if you are not aware. For me, I became aggressive in terms of confrontation, in that I was very argumentative over the tiniest things. Losing my parents, especially my mother, felt like I had no reason to exist. She was who I called when I didn't know what to do. She was literally my whole world, and half of me died with her. As for my father, it deeply hurt as we had a pending conversation, leaving me with so many questions, and I had to grieve him differently as my dad. And what would have happened if we had that pending conversation? During that period, I lost a lot of relationship, but also gained friendship that are still intact to date. What I hated to hear from family was that I should get over it, that I'm the firstborn child, so I should set an example, that, it's life. I know that it's life. I know they meant well, but it felt insensitive because I was not ready to let go. And due to a lot of avoidance, as I had to handle so many things at the time, I got depressed to the point of being medicated. And I started therapy, but nothing was helping me come out of this dark place, which no one seemed to understand. They don't warn you that in grieving you are also grieving your old life, your personality, or how you perceive life, and you get to see how everyone views your loved one. It has been 5 years, and right now, at this moment, I am in a better place. I have been healing, and I am starting to feel like myself again, but it's different from the old me in a good way. I have accepted I will never see them again, and the random breakdowns which would happen anywhere, anytime, even in public, have stopped. But the triggers never go away because you still see people with their parents, and you can't share the things happening in your life with your parents anymore. So it just takes you back to the fact that they are gone. Healing for me happened when I did inner work. I had to isolate for a bit and teach myself how to console myself, how to regulate my emotions, and luckily I had a support system. My therapist, my friends, a few relatives who were willing to listen even if they didn't have anything to say, and they just let me cry. So with time, it got easier, and now I'm in a better place. It's important to give yourself grace and just feel the emotion as they come. So let me also read out some of the things that, let me see if somebody has written something. Uh, have been longing for a session like this. Lost my dad last year, October 25th. Since then, life has never been the same. But on my side, I thank God ameniepusha na depression na slowly I'm regaining myself. I want to appreciate everybody who texted me and shared their story. That was very brave of you, and may God see you through this. So I have one guest with us who would like to share a story. Brian, let me unmute. Just a minute. Brian, are you with us? Oh, I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for joining. You can go ahead and share your story with us.